My sister secretly got married on my wedding date and lied it was a coincidence. My parents still went and said hers was a sure thing. So I sent her a wedding gift so sharp it ruined her damn honeymoon. It was supposed to be my wedding day. November 3rd, 2023. The day I'd been planning for a year and a half. I had the venue, the catering, the photographer, everything booked down to the minute. Except there was no groom. Because 2 weeks before the big day, my fiancé, Derek, called it off. Said he wasn't ready, but still wanted to stay friends. I was humiliated, heartbroken, and trying to keep my head above water. So I decided to keep the venue deposit and turn the day into a small family dinner instead. I just couldn't stand wasting everything I'd poured my soul into. My sister Rachel offered to help me get through it. She said she'd come early, help set things up, make sure I didn't spiral. She even told me she'd bring our parents so I wouldn't be alone. But on the morning of what was supposed to be my wedding, my phone started blowing up, not with messages of support, but with tags on Instagram. Rachel, in a white dress, holding hands with her boyfriend, Brian, #justmarried. At first, I thought it was an old photo, some dumb joke. But the geotag was the courthouse downtown, the same city, the same damn date. She had gotten married on my wedding day. I called her in a daze. She didn't pick up. Then Mom texted me, "Honey, I hope you understand. Rachel's wedding was very last minute. She's been so sure about Brian for a long time. We'll come by after their lunch to see you." That's when it hit me, they all went. My parents, my sister, even my maid of honor who'd said she had a migraine. They all chose her wedding over my canceled one. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by unused wedding favors, eating cold cake from the fridge. My sister posted another photo, her and Brian kissing under the just married sign. Her caption said, "Sometimes fate chooses the date for you." I wanted to scream. Fate didn't choose that date. I did. For days, she kept posting photos, the courthouse, their small reception, her in the white dress she'd happened to find just the week before. Everyone commented how beautiful and spontaneous it was. And every time I saw it, the knife twisted deeper. When I finally confronted her, she just smiled and said, "It's not my fault you didn't get married first." That was the moment something in me went ice cold. She thought she could humiliate me and walk away smiling. She thought she'd stolen my day and made it her own. But she didn't know that I still had her wedding registry link and one very specific gift she'd listed there. Something she'd never expect to backfire the way it did. I sent it, gift-wrapped with a card that said, "From your loving sister, may this honeymoon be unforgettable." And oh, it was. Because that gift ended up slicing open more than just her luggage. Rachel and I were close growing up. At least that's what I used to tell people. She was the kind of sister who smiled in family photos, but always had to be the prettier one, the one who accidentally told your secrets, the one who made you feel small without ever saying anything mean outright. She was the golden child, the one my parents bragged about nonstop. Perfect grades, perfect boyfriend, perfect hair. I was the quiet one, the sensitive one, the one who took things too seriously. But I didn't mind being in her shadow, not at first. I carved my own path, worked my way through college, built a career in marketing, got my own apartment. I was proud of what I'd made for myself. When Derek proposed, Rachel acted thrilled. She cried, hugged me, said, "You deserve this so much." She even offered to help plan the wedding. Looking back, that's when things started to shift. She kept suggesting changes that matched things she wanted, the same florist she'd once said she'd use, the same dress designer, even the same song she and her boyfriend danced to at a friend's wedding. I brushed it off. I thought she was just excited. Then she started showing up at my fittings. Sometimes she'd bring Brian along and make comments like, "This is nice, but it's not really your color," or, "Oh wow, our dates might line up someday soon." Brian was nice enough. Quiet, polite. He worked with Rachel at some real estate firm. They'd been together maybe a year and a half, shorter than Derek and I, but still solid. At least that's what everyone said. Then came the bridal shower. That was the first time I saw her wearing white. A short, lacy dress that everyone complimented, saying she looked so bridal. She kept brushing off the jokes, saying, "Oh, I'm just manifesting." My mom laughed along with her. "She'll be next, I'm sure of it," she said. That night when everyone had gone home, I caught Rachel in the kitchen scrolling through her phone, smiling. When I asked what was so funny, she said, "Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how weird it'd be if we both got married around the same time. You know, sister weddings? I laughed it off. But something about her tone stayed with me. Then 2 weeks before my wedding, Derek called me crying, said he couldn't go through with it, that he felt trapped. He swore it wasn't about anyone else, but he wouldn't look me in the eye when he said it. Rachel was the first one I called. She came over with wine and tissues, acting so sympathetic it almost felt rehearsed. She said things like, "Maybe this happened for a reason, and you're so strong, I know you'll be okay." The next day, she told my parents, and they treated it like a minor inconvenience. My mom even said, "Well, at least you didn't waste the deposits. Maybe Rachel will get married soon, we can reuse some of it." I didn't realize she meant immediately. Because while I was crying over a canceled wedding, Rachel was already planning hers, secretly, quietly, right on top of my ruined date. She didn't just steal my day. She hijacked my grief and turned it into her celebration. And what she didn't know was that I wasn't just heartbroken, I was paying attention. After Rachel's courthouse stunt, my family tried to smooth it over like it was just bad timing. My mom kept repeating, "It's not like she meant to hurt you." My dad said, "Rachel's wedding was simple. Yours would have been big and fancy. Totally different vibe." Different vibe? It was the same date, the same family, the same freaking dress color. I couldn't even scroll through social media without getting sucker punched. Everyone from our hometown was congratulating her, old teachers, cousins, people who'd RSVP'd to my wedding. Her captions were always something like, "Sometimes love can't wait. Forever starts now." I blocked her on everything, but blocking her didn't stop the whispers. My aunt called to say how sweet it was that Rachel had helped me move on by giving the family something happy to focus on. Like my pain was a footnote in her fairy tale. Then the invitations started showing up. Rachel and Brian were having a post-courthouse celebration, a small beach reception for family and friends. Date, November 10th. 1 week after my original wedding date. And the kicker, the location was the same venue I had booked. I called the venue out of curiosity, pretending to be a vendor. The coordinator told me that Rachel had called days after my cancellation and transferred the deposit under her name, saying it was still within the family. My stomach dropped. She didn't just reuse my day, she took my money. That night, I pulled up her wedding registry. I don't know why I did it, maybe out of masochism. She had everything listed, from a Vitamix to luggage sets. The same luggage I'd told her I wanted for my honeymoon to Maui. I sat there staring at it, realizing she'd literally built her dream wedding from the ashes of mine. Then something strange happened. Brian messaged me. Just a single text. "Hey, I know things are weird right now. Just wanted to say I didn't mean for any of it to overlap like this." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. A few days later, I ran into one of Rachel's coworkers at Target. She asked if I was excited for the honeymoon. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. Her face turned red. She mumbled something like, "Oh, Rachel said you and Derek were going on a trip with them. My bad." That's when I realized Rachel had been using my canceled honeymoon plans too. She'd told people she was going to Maui with her new husband, the exact trip I'd planned. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Every single piece of my wedding, the date, the venue, the trip, she had repurposed for herself. And the worst part, my parents acted like it was normal. When I told my mom I was done with Rachel, she said, "You girls can't stay mad forever. Family's family. Maybe you should send her something nice, start to heal." That's when the idea clicked. If they all wanted me to send her a wedding gift, fine, I would. It would just be one she'd never forget. Because Rachel's registry had one specific item she'd bragged about nonstop, a $400 set of custom Japanese kitchen knives. "For all the cooking we'll do together," she'd said. So I bought them, wrapped them beautifully, added a sweet little note. But before I hit purchase, I made one small adjustment that turned her dream gift into a ticking time bomb. I bought the knife set from her registry, but I didn't send it directly from the retailer. I had it shipped to me first. I wanted to see it to make sure it was perfect. The set came in a sleek wooden box, polished and gleaming, the kind of knives professional chefs drool over. That's when I remembered something Derek had once told me when we were still planning our wedding. Japanese steel is no joke. You could shave your fingerprints off with one of those. I turned one of the blades over in my hand, running my finger gently across the edge. Razor sharp, flawless. And then, my brain clicked into that cold, surgical place you go when you've been hurt beyond tears. I wasn't thinking like a scorned bride anymore. I was thinking like someone who'd finally accepted that her family didn't care if she bled, so I might as well bleed on purpose. I wrote a note on cream cardstock, signed with perfect handwriting. Congratulations to the new Mr. and Mrs. May every slice bring you closer together. Love always, your sister. Then I added something else. Something they wouldn't notice until they started packing for their honeymoon. I placed one of the knives, wrapped tightly in its sheath, into their matching luggage set, in the mesh pocket that zipped against the lining. I slid the rest of the knives back into the box and resealed everything like new. Then I shipped it straight to her address with the tracking number she'd listed. 3 days later, she texted me, "Got your gift, it's beautiful. Maybe you're not such a jealous witch after all." I didn't reply. Then she posted a boomerang of the knife set on her Instagram story with a caption, "Cooking up a new life, best gift ever." 2 days later, my mom called. Her tone was shaky. "Rachel's at the airport. There was an incident." Apparently, when she and Brian were going through TSA for their flight to Maui, the security scanners picked up a suspicious object in her checked luggage. They opened it and found the knife. Not the boxed ones, the one I'd hidden in her suitcase. TSA flagged it as a security violation. She was pulled into a back room for questioning. Her bag was searched. The knives were confiscated. Rachel was hysterical. She claimed she had no idea how it got there, but apparently, Brian had already told an agent that she packed the bags herself. She missed her flight. Their honeymoon was postponed. She called me crying that night, furious. "You knew they'd search our luggage. Why would you do that?" I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. I reminded her that she picked the luggage and listed the knives herself. "Must have been a packing mistake," I said sweetly. But that's when her voice broke, and she said something that made my stomach twist, not with guilt but with curiosity. "This isn't about the wedding, is it? You're mad because you found out." Found out what? I played dumb, but my heart started pounding. The way she said it, it wasn't defensive. It was scared. That's when I realized there was more to this than stealing my date or my venue. Rachel hadn't just wanted my wedding. She'd taken something or someone else from me, too. I didn't sleep that night. Her words kept replaying. "You're mad because you found out." Found out what exactly? At 2 a.m., I grabbed my laptop and started digging. I scrolled through her tagged photos, her husband's posts, their comments. Nothing obvious. But then, on Brian's Facebook page, I saw an old photo from last year, a 4th of July barbecue. Derek was there, my ex. They were playing beer pong together, laughing. Rachel was behind the camera. I stared at it until my chest hurt. I hadn't even known they'd met. The next morning, I called one of my old coworkers, someone who used to hang out in the same circle as Rachel and Brian's office crowd. I asked, as casually as I could, if she'd ever seen my sister and Derek around the same time. There was a pause, then she sighed. "I didn't want to get involved, but yeah, I saw them at O'Malley's once, back in September. Looked kinda close." September. That was 2 months before Derek called off the wedding. My whole body went cold. I checked my phone records next. I hadn't deleted his number. There were dozens of late-night calls between Derek and an unknown number during that time. I cross-referenced it with my contacts. Rachel's work cell. That's when everything snapped into focus. She hadn't just stolen my date, she'd been sleeping with my fiancé. That's why Derek had backed out. That's why she got married so fast. She didn't steal my wedding. She inherited it. I wanted to burn her world down. But I forced myself to slow down. My first gift had already cracked her perfect image. I needed to make sure the next hit destroyed it completely. I started with Brian. I still had that one text he'd sent after her courthouse stunt, the one where he said, "I didn't mean for any of it to overlap like this." I replied to it, finally. "What exactly did you mean by overlap?" He didn't answer for a day. Then, "Rachel told me she and Derek were over before you two split. I didn't know the whole story." So he did know. That was the wedge I needed. I drafted a long, emotional email, pretending to be apologetic. I wrote about how I was coming to terms with what happened, that I just wanted peace, and that I hoped he understood I wasn't angry anymore. At the end, I included screenshots, Derek's call logs, Rachel's texts, the date stamps, every single proof I had. I ended it with, "You deserve to know who you really married." I sent it from an anonymous account. Then I waited. 2 days later, Rachel posted nothing. Her stories went dark. No Maui sunsets, no couple selfies, just silence. 3 days after that, my mom called again, panicked. Rachel and Brian had a huge fight at the hotel. He flew home early. I asked why, and she said Rachel wouldn't say, only that I had something to do with it. I played dumb again. But inside, I felt calm. Like finally, after everything, the scales were starting to balance. Still, something didn't sit right. I wanted to know if Derek was involved in this mess again, so I texted him for the first time in months. "Did you know Rachel got married on our date?" He replied instantly. "Yeah, she told me it was poetic." Poetic. My sister was using my heartbreak as her love story's backdrop. That's when I knew this wasn't over. And I wasn't done giving gifts. A week passed after the Maui disaster. My phone stayed quiet except for the occasional awkward check-in from my mom, who kept saying things like, "Your sister's been going through a lot," as if she hadn't detonated my entire life. Then one night, while I was scrolling mindlessly through my emails, I saw a new one come in from a realtor's office. The subject line said, "Offer accepted, congratulations, Rachel Miller." I almost deleted it before realizing it was sent to my address. Curiosity took over. I opened it and felt my stomach twist when I read the property details. The exact same house Derek and I had toured 6 months before we broke up. The little gray Craftsman with the white porch in Aurora Hills. We'd both fallen in love with it, but I'd said we should wait until after the wedding. Now Rachel had bought it. With Brian, using my email address by accident because she'd used my contact information from when she helped me with the original mortgage application months ago. I sat there staring at the screen, shaking. She hadn't just copied me. She'd been tracking me, using my plans, my deposits, my paperwork, even my style as a damn blueprint. The next morning, I drove out to the property. It was in the early stages of renovation, the sold sign freshly posted. I saw her car in the driveway and another one parked behind it. Derek's. I froze. He was there, shirt off, helping unload wood panels. Rachel was standing beside him, laughing, handing him a bottle of water. Brian was nowhere in sight. That's when the truth sank in hard. She'd married Brian for convenience, maybe money, maybe to cover up the affair, but Derek was still in the picture. And from the way they looked at each other, they hadn't stopped seeing each other at all. I wanted to scream, but instead I drove home. My hands were shaking on the wheel, but my mind was crystal clear. I had proof now, visual, undeniable proof. That night, I sent Brian another anonymous message. This time I attached the photos I'd taken from my car. No words, just pictures. He replied 2 hours later, "Who are you?" Then another, "Is this recent?" I never answered. The next day, Rachel called me, voice trembling with rage. "You sick freak, you're stalking me now." I said calmly, "Funny, I thought you liked taking what's mine." Then she went quiet, and I could hear the panic in her breathing. That silence told me everything I needed to know. She'd already gotten the fallout from Brian. A few hours later, my mom texted, "Rachel's husband moved out." Perfect. But then something strange happened. Brian emailed me directly. "You should know Rachel wasn't honest about anything. The marriage wasn't real. It was never filed." I froze. He attached a copy of the public record, no marriage certificate. No license on file for Rachel and Brian in the county database. She'd staged a fake wedding. The courthouse photos, the celebration, even the honeymoon, it was all for show. And suddenly everything clicked, the rushed ceremony, the weird captions, her desperation to post about it online. She wasn't celebrating love. She was performing it. She didn't just want what I had, she wanted to erase me and live as me. When Brian told me the marriage wasn't real, something inside me cracked open. I thought the worst was already behind me, losing my wedding, my fiancé, my sister. But finding out that none of it was even real, that she'd staged an entire wedding to mock mine, made my skin crawl. I needed to understand why. Brian agreed to meet me. We met at a coffee shop halfway between his new apartment and mine. He looked wrecked, pale, sleep-deprived, eyes red like he hadn't stopped crying in days. He told me everything. Rachel never loved him, not really. He was just a prop, a placeholder. She told me from the start she wanted stability, he said quietly, staring into his untouched coffee. I thought she meant financially, but she meant socially. She said people respect you more when you're married, especially if your sister's the kind of girl everyone feels sorry for. My stomach turned. He said she'd bragged about how unbreakable she looked online, how she'd finally won. She told him she'd picked my date on purpose because, in her words, there's no better way to bury a tragedy than to replace it with something people actually care about. My tragedy. She'd taken the most painful day of my life and used it as her own reset button. But the part that really broke me came next. Brian said Rachel had confessed that she and Derek had been seeing each other before my wedding, and that she'd convinced him to end things with me by saying I'd been cheating. She'd shown him fake screenshots of messages I'd supposedly sent to another guy. She'd fabricated the entire thing. And when Derek dumped me, she told him she'd been helping me pick up the pieces. That's when she moved in on him. Brian told me, she said it was like poetic justice. She got to keep everything you lost. Every single thing, my fiancé, my wedding, my honeymoon, even the damn house. I sat there staring at him, trying to process the level of sickness that took. But then Brian said something else, something colder. She doesn't love Derek either, he said. She said she just likes how he looks standing next to her. She said he's good face value. He told me Rachel had planned to file the marriage certificate after she secured the house, so she could put everything under her name first, no shared ownership. Once she had what she wanted, she was going to dump Brian and move Derek in. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about jealousy. It was about control. About rewriting the family story so she was the perfect, stable, enviable daughter, and I was the sad, unlucky one who could never get it right. She didn't want my happiness. She wanted my identity, and she almost pulled it off. I left that coffee shop shaking, not from grief this time, but from focus. Because once you see what kind of monster you're dealing with, you stop playing defense. Rachel had spent years stealing pieces of me. Now it was my turn to take something from her, something she couldn't post away, delete, or fake her way through. Something permanent. The thing about revenge is that it has to be clean. Not loud, not messy, just enough to make sure they feel it every time they try to rebuild. After that talk with Brian, I knew exactly where to hit Rachel, her reputation. That's what she worshipped. Not love, not family, image. She'd built her whole identity on being the perfect sister, the picture-perfect woman who had it all together. So I gave the world the truth. First, I gathered everything, screenshots from Brian's messages, Derek's call logs, the county record showing no marriage license, photos of Rachel and Derek at the house. Then I put it all together in a shared Google Drive labeled Rachel's Reality. I didn't post it publicly. That would have made me look bitter. Instead, I sent the link privately to the people who actually mattered to her. Her boss, her closest friends, the HOA group she bragged about joining. And of course, my parents. My message was short and calm. Since Rachel's been telling everyone I've been jealous of her marriage, I thought it was fair you all knew the truth about what really happened. Transparency's important, right? Within hours, the fallout started. Her boss called her in for a conversation. Her friend group splintered, half of them texted me apologies, saying they had no idea. Derek deleted his social media completely. And Rachel, she called me over and over, leaving furious voicemails. The last one was just her screaming, "You've ruined me." No, I thought, you ruined me. I just returned the favor. A week later, Brian texted again. He said Rachel had lost her job. The company didn't want to be associated with personal scandals. The house deal fell through when the bank realized the financials didn't add up without Brian's income. She tried to blame me publicly, but nobody bought it anymore. Her credibility was gone. And just to make sure the knife twist stayed deep, I mailed her one final package, a small wooden box, identical to the one from her fake wedding registry. Inside was a single dull kitchen knife with a note that read, "For all those things you tried to cut out of your life, you missed one." After that, I blocked her number for good. It's been 6 months now. I moved to Denver, started therapy, started breathing again. Sometimes I still think about how it all unfolded, how the girl I once trusted with every secret ended up being the person who tried hardest to erase me. But the thing about people like Rachel is that they only win as long as you keep playing their game. Once you walk away and stop feeding their version of the story, they rot in silence. Last I heard, she's living back with my parents, trying to rebuild. They don't talk to me much anymore, and that's fine. I don't need their version of family. Because I finally learned something she never did, that piece hits harder than revenge ever could. Still, I'll admit, sometimes I pour a drink, pull up her old wedding photos, and smirk a little.